Well, everyday Indigenous Australians are the face of the Yes campaign for The Voice, encouraging voters to support the referendum taking place between October and December, like we just said. But that hasn't stopped endorsements from former sporting stars, including the great Johnathan Thurston, Eddie Betts and Evonne Goolagong Cawley, who've backed the Yes campaign. Initially, plans to put celebrities and sports stars, such as Cathy Freeman and Paddy Mills, at the front of the campaign were ditched over fears that that move would backfire because there is failed history here. Let's go through it. In 2016, football star David Beckham threw his support behind the Remain campaign in the Brexit referendum. ABBA encouraged British voters to take a chance on staying in the EU, as did Professor Stephen Hawking, who warned the UK would be left isolated and would create a disaster for the future of British science. And famously, Hillary Clinton used a whole conga line of celebrities to help her presidential push in 2016, and that failed spectacularly. So, do celebrity endorsements help campaigns or hinder them? And if not, why? Well, joining us live now is expert in referendums, visiting Professor of Constitutional Law at the ANU, Matt Vaughtrup, who recently penned a piece on this very point. Matt, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. I read that piece. I thought it was good. Wanted to talk to you about it. So, I think with that whole setup there, we can deduce that celebrity endorsements aren't a good idea. They very rarely work. Why?
They don't work because a referendum is about an issue and people want to know how an issue is solved. So if there's a credible problem and a credible solution, then people will go for it. So if you have Andy Murray saying that Scotland should become an independent country, then you sort of think, well, Andy Murray doesn't have to struggle with a mortgage. Andy Murray is not very much like me, nor is David Beckham or Bruce Springsteen or whoever comes out in favour of something. So they normally just go for the issues. So in a way, it's almost insulting to the people who are voting in a referendum that you don't talk about the issue. What people are interested in a referendum is whether there's a credible story, if it's promoted with passion, and if the people who speak on this subject are credible, if they are likely to know what they're talking about.
Is it also a fact that, you know, the stars are usually elites? You know, they don't have anything in common with the common person, with the common man or woman. And there's it almost kind of acts as a vote against that to spite them. Is there incidents of this?
It is very much the sort of elite sort of thing, yes. I mean, elites don't necessarily... If you have an elite person who actually has credibility in a particular field, then you're likely to listen to that particular person. But just because Stephen Hawking might know a lot about black holes doesn't mean that he knows a lot about the issue of, say, Brexit. Yeah. So elites are often seen to be people who don't have to worry about things, and referendums are often about the individuals who have to consider what they're doing. So I think the fact that they always do this, I call it a case of Britney Spears theory of politics, sort of, oops, I did it again. And it happens over and over again.
Well, the Democrats do it all the time. I mean, I keep going back to that 2016 because it was a big example. I mean,
but the Republicans do it too. I mean, they have country and western stars coming out.
Not many of them though. They don't have the big pop stars. The Katy Perrys of this world, who are much more famous than those country and western stars that you quite rightly point out. But Trump kind of did it on his own. I mean, is that, whether that's him or whether that's a move against, the swamp, as he called it? I mean, how do you relate your experience to what you've seen happen in the UK and here in Australia to what happens in the US?
Well, what happens in the US is that in elections, occasionally it might work because if it's about a credible person. But I think the overall thing in politics is that people actually, especially in a sort of democratized age where you can tweet all sorts of things, actually like to trust their own judgment. And I think it is this idea that you have to be told what to do, told what to say, is the thing that really rubs people up the wrong way. So I think the Republicans, I mean, one of the things that Trump probably was saying that he couldn't find people who could endorse him, and he probably would have liked to have done that.
Sure.
But I think it was fortuitous for him that he couldn't do that, and then suddenly he can sort of do away with that and not get the Robert Redford.
I remember John McCain, he used Clint Eastwood many years ago, and it didn't work for him. But, I mean, that was going against Barack Obama, and no one was going to beat him then. But when it comes to celebrities more broadly, do they do it for themselves, or are they actually doing it for the cause?
I think they are doing it because, for want of a better word, they might be useful idiots. and they may not be thinking very much about this. So we had, actually on the no side, or the Brexit side, we had Johnny Rotten, formerly of the Sex Pistols, whose major hit was Anarchy in the UK, who supported Brexit. And the only thing that he got out of that was that there were fewer downloads of Sex Pistols songs. So I think celebrities like to think that they're being listened to, and regrettably for them, they're not.
Why do you think oppositions to referendum win more often than not?
It is quite easy because if you get the sort of a very abstract question, most people would start liking that. When then you sort of look into the details of it, you may not. The problems about referendums is that it's often about issues you haven't thought about in the past. And then when you start looking into the detail, there'll be all sorts of things that sort of come up. And it might sort of trouble you. And then you become sceptical, and you become sceptical, you vote no in the end.
And that's what's happening here, do you think?
That is what's happening here, but I think I would urge a note of caution. I saw before that there was the undecided they're more undecided voters.
Yeah.
Generally in referendum campaigns, 2/3 of the undecided go to the no side. So the no side always have an edge in referendums. That was even built in.
2/3 of the undecided
as a general rule, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Gallup in Australia even used to have that built into their polls. So that's one of the things. However, another thing about referendums in Australia in particular, but other places as well, is that politicians who win referendums tend to lose elections. Menzies lost a referendum in 1951, went on to win many elections after that. Bob Hawke, arguably one of Australia's most successful prime ministers, lost a total of 6 referendums and yet stayed in power. So you should be careful what you wish for.
Good news for Anthony Albanese. That could be a loss on the referendum. We get to stay in power.
Yes, because it is about an issue. It's not about a person. So a referendum is all like you have your cake and eat it. You can show your dissatisfaction with the government. It's an easy way of giving them a kicking without actually suffering too much.
Interesting. Good to have you, Matt. Thanks for joining us.